Now, I know we've all studied the poetic device aspect of this lyric-filled musical by Lin-Manuel Miranda, all from the unstressed, stressed lyrics of My Shot to the alliteration of
Washington isn't gonna listen to disciplined dissidents. This is the difference. This kid is out.
In Washington on Your Side. But now that we've taken a step back from analyzing the melody of the lyrics, we get to actually listen to them. Well, we're not actually going to be listening to them, because I don't get 2.5 hours to sit here and play the entire musical itself, but I've listened to the songs on many occasions, and I think I can tell you what's going on, which is, one of the biggest themes in Hamilton in an American musical is ambition, and how that theme is shown is by 3 main motifs: legacy, taking versus wanting, and running out of time. Before we begin to explain these motifs for the big theme, we have to define these fancy words, starting with our theme, ambition. I'd like to say that Hamilton is ambition, but that won't do, so we've got this. Ambition is defined by, according to Google, someone who has a strong desire to do or to achieve something, typically requiring determination and hard work. In other words, someone who is determined to achieve one main goal. In our case, one of Hamilton's main goals is to have a legacy. Hey, look at that! Legacy is our first motif. But before I get into Hamilton's desire for a legacy, we have to define one more thing, so hold that thought for a moment. What we need to do is define a motif. A motif is similar to a theme, but not quite one. According to dictionary.com, a motif is a recurring subject, theme, idea, etc., especially in a literary, artistic, or musical work. A motif can also be an abstract noun, like the emotion love or grief. Another way to look at it is that a theme is like the main idea of the story, the author's message to the audience, and there can be more than one, while a motif is a recurring idea, object, emotion, or quality within a story. Motifs can also help develop a theme, and that's what we'll be focusing on. Remember that first motif I told you to hold on to? Time to bring that back. Our first motif that drives Hamilton towards a theme of ambition is legacy. What is a legacy, you ask? Well,
it's planting seeds in a garden you never get to see.
No, I'm joking. The first definition, this is the last one I swear, you'd find is an inheritance, but that's not the one we're looking for. In this case, in Hamilton's case, a legacy is how much you will be remembered in generations to come. Diving into that, Hamilton is desperate to be remembered with a good reputation. Because of that, he cares a lot about what people think of him. The first time we see this idea of Hamilton wanting a legacy is in Alexander Hamilton.
The world's gonna know your name. What's your name, man?
Alexander Hamilton. My name is Alexander Hamilton. And there's a million things I haven't done. But just you wait, just you wait.
This is the first line Alexander says. Convenient, right? And what he means is that you just have to wait a few hours to see all the great things he's going to do that will leave him with an amazing legacy in real life. This is then repeated throughout the song a couple more times to signify the importance of the "just you wait" quote. The second example I have about Hamilton's legacy is a funnier one. Going back a little, I said that Hamilton cares a lot about what people think of him, and that he wants everyone to know about his good reputation. Well, Hamilton ends up punching someone for that good thought about him.
I was seeking an accelerated course of study when I got sort of out of sorts with a buddy of yours. I may have punched him. It's a blur, sir. He handles the financials.
You punched the bursar.
Yes, I wanted to do what you did, graduate into and join the revolution. He looked at me like I was stupid. I'm not stupid.
Hamilton wants everyone to think he's this great and smart and amazing guy that he literally punches a guy. So that guy, the bursar, knows he is, in fact, not stupid. Now, I'm not going to name all the time Hamilton's legacy is mentioned or questioned, but some other important moments are when Hamilton risks his life to fight if it means dying with a legacy.
If they tell my story, I am either gonna die on the battlefield in glory or rise up.
Hamilton is either going to get a legacy for dying on the battlefield, or he'll move past this to do bigger and better things to gain a legacy. The last one I'll mention is not said by Hamilton, but goes to show that Hamilton starts to obsess so much about his legacy, especially in Act 2, that it starts to destroy Hamilton's well-being. This part is sung by Eliza Hamilton after the release of the Reynolds pamphlet.
You and your words obsessed with your legacy. Your sentences border on senseless, and you are paranoid in every paragraph. How they deceive you.
These lyrics probably hit home the most as they are sung with so much emotion of hatred and sadness and regret. You and your words obsessed with your legacy shows that at the end of the musical, Hamilton was really only thinking about himself and his legacy. So much so that his sentences and what he said were not what should have been said. He didn't think about anyone else besides himself when writing. Hamilton was paranoid. He was so afraid of somebody finding out about his affair and telling people about it that he wrote a 100-page book about it all. And this was all because he wanted his legacy in a pure state and nobody to see him as a bad person. And all of this just shows that in this musical, a major motif of the theme ambition is legacy. Alright, on to the next one. The next motif I'd like to talk about is taking versus wanting. Like the last one, this motif is pretty well known. It's shown by none other than Hamilton and Burr. We'll be focusing more on Hamilton rather than Burr because our theme is Hamilton's ambition, not Burr's lack of ambition. This motif doesn't start off at the beginning like the legacy motif. It's actually first mentioned in Wait For It. Well, it's actually mentioned in the last 10 seconds of the Story of Tonight reprise, but that leads into Wait For It. What happens is Hamilton asks Burr, "What are you waiting for?" which leads us into the biggest difference between Hamilton and Burr. Hamilton takes what he wants and goes for it, while Burr sits on the side to wait for everything to come to him. Hamilton's theme of ambition seriously shows when we see him take everything he wants. Hamilton wants to be a part of the war, so he becomes Washington's right-hand man. Hamilton wants to fight, so he becomes the leader of a troop that helps defeat the British at Yorktown. Hamilton wants to defend the Constitution, so he writes 51 essays in the span of 6 months to do so. Hamilton wants his financial plan in place, so he lets Thomas Jefferson move the capital so he can shape his financial plan however he wants. Hamilton takes a hold of any and every opportunity he can. He's a taker, not a wanter. He goes for it, not waits for it, which then proves Hamilton the musical has a theme of ambition. On to the last motif. It's a smaller one, but I never realized how much it affected almost every character until I read an article about it on Grade Saver. While it is mentioned pretty directly, you won't realize it until after it's said. They mention how Hamilton always fears of running out of time, which makes him very ambitious. He starts to work very rigorously with various projects to reach his goal of having a legacy. First time we see this motif is in My Shot.
I imagine death so much it feels more like a memory. When's it gonna get me? In my sleep, 7 feet ahead of me. If I see it coming, do I run or do I let it be? Is it like a beat without a melody? See, I never thought I'd live past 20. Where I come from, some get half as many.
Hamilton at a young age developed a fear of dying and a realization that he could literally die at any second. This fear made him always think that this could be his last day of living. It made him always want to positively influence the foundation of the country. As the musical goes on, we are introduced to a very catchy lyric asked by Burr in Nonstop.
Why do you ride like you're running out of time? Right day and night like you're running out of time. Every day you fight like you're running out of time.
And then later in the song, Burr adds,
How do you ride like you're running out of time? Right day and night like you're running out of time. Every day you fight like you're running out of time. Like you're running out of time. Are you running out of time? How do you ride like tomorrow won't arrive? How do you ride like you needed to survive? How do you ride every second you're alive? Every second you're alive. Every second you're alive.
Hamilton is so scared of dying that all he ever starts to do is write. He writes everything that he believes because he feels it needs to be said. He wrote 51 essays out of the 86 total essays in the Federalist Papers in 6 months. These essays weren't short either. Rather, they were each about 5 to 10 pages long. The next time we hear about Hamilton writing is in Hurricane. He tried to write his way out of trouble when he had an affair with Maria Reynolds. He then overwhelms the people of America with the information about his affair. Some of it probably should have been left out. But that's what Hamilton knew to do. He developed a second nature to write every single detail because he feared he wouldn't be alive the next day to say more. Not saying I agree with Hamilton's actions or anything, but he wrote as if he was always going to run out of time. And throughout the musical, we see this motif of Hamilton's fear of running out of time, so he writes, develop. Looking back, this might be a lot, I know, but going back to say, there is a theme in Hamilton, ambition. And within that theme, there are motifs that go along with the theme and prove it. A desire for a legacy, taking to get further versus waiting for it to come, and a fear of running out of time. Hamilton from a young age developed an ambitious state of mind which drove him to become a great man. Arguably, America wouldn't even exist without Hamilton, and Hamilton's ambition then drove him to have 3 qualities of life. Which all tie up to the theme of ambition in Hamilton, an American musical.
Who tells your story?